I'll encourage everybody who's here today, just throw in comments in chat as we're going along, because really this is a kickback, chill with us episode, hang out and ask some questions.
Absolutely.
So Ignition. So Jennie Moore, you've been with us several times, and we are so glad that you're part of Ignition, because we have created templates as Happy Hour inside of Ignition for our accounting community. We have templates in there that's about reoccurring work, cleanup work. I think that there's even some consulting, like maybe if you're doing app consulting. So lots of goodies that are inside of Ignition, and thank you for partnering with Happy Hour and staying so close to our community.
Oh, absolutely.
We are extraordinarily fortunate. Heather, do you want to introduce yourself?
I will absolutely introduce myself. My name is Heather Satterley. I'm a CPA, and I'm the Director of Education and Media at Woodard. And I love all things accounting technology. So I am a professional tech tinkerer, and my job, I have the best job in the world, because I get to work with speakers and help develop the education and training that is delivered at our Scaling New Heights conference and our other events. So we have a couple events happening in addition to Scaling New Heights this year, which is really exciting. So I have my hand in that. And I'm also the editor of the Woodard Report, which is our online magazine. So I have lots of fun doing that.
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, I love it that you're part of our community and creating training for our community. So couldn't have been more happy to see you on the main stage at Scaling New Heights.
Yes.
Thanks. I finally had the courage to watch it, my main stage. And I watched it on Sunday with my family. And I didn't hate it. So that was good, because I was terrified to watch it. And I'm like, oh, wow.
Well, I teared up. I got to see you live. And so I can almost reach you from where I was sitting.
Yeah.
It was a big deal for me. It was one of those kind of pivotal moments. So really, yeah.
Yeah.
I would share that it was a big deal for all of us who know you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
My son was really sweet. So my son watched it. My husband and my son watched it. My son was like, wow, you look so professional. Like he had never seen me present. So he had no idea. He just knows I sit in my office and I talk all day. That was like my job. Heather Bob talks all day. So he watched, he was like, wow. So that was cool. And when I was backstage, he had actually sent to me a text one morning, just how are you doing? And I sent him a picture. I was playing stage manager behind the main stage. And Jennie, I know you were back there with me, with Carla, and I had my little headset on and I sent him a picture. I'm like, I'm a stage manager. And he was just the sweetest thing. And I had sent him a picture when Ed Kless was on stage, and he had said, wow, so like, this is like a big deal. He's like, are you going to be one of the people that's like on that stage? I'm like, yes. And he was really sweet. So I had this whole text thing that made me cry. Yeah, isn't it magical when the little teeny beings that grow up into adult beings, and it's like all of a sudden you have this different type of relationship with your kids. It's pretty magical.
It is neat. Yes. And thank you for being such an amazing role model for our industry, because we need that, right? We need to hear your voice. We need to hear everyone's voice. And it's just such a great conference to do that, and a safe place to be and learn from each other. And great job.
Well, it's pretty darn cool. And I think most here know me. So I'm Liz Scott. For those of you who don't, I'm going to switch over here to Jennie, because Jennie, I got to see you on the main stage too. And that was super killer. That was super killer. Yeah. To be able to see you and to shine was exciting.
It was neat. I mean, it was, I remember when people were asking me before I was to speak, like, what are you going to talk about? And I said, I'm going to talk about my screw up. How I screwed up. They're like, wow, woman on stage, usually, that's sometimes an issue to talk about our failures. I'm like, no, I'm going to own it and talk about my failures of, running a practice and, why I decided to use Ignition in 2016. And, from that, at first it was awkward, but so many people came up afterwards. And I think like we all have those moments, right? And the more voices we bring and the more candid and honest we are, the stronger we are together. So yeah, it was a very humbling moment.
It was a way for us to connect with you, because many of us know you before you were with Ignition, but those who don't, they got a chance to be able to see a glimpse of who Jennie Moore is outside of Ignition and before Ignition.
Yeah.
So that was really a cool opportunity to see the human Jennie.
Aw, thank you.
Amazing.
On a side note, I almost missed the flight out of Toronto that morning. It was during that time frame when COVID was still very much an issue, and planes were delayed, and I was 4 hours in customs, begging and pleading to get on the plane. So, Joe was such a gracious host. I remember getting there, and it was just okay, breathe, and sitting behind stage and collecting my thoughts and getting focused. So, a really great group there. Heather, thank you for.
Oh, our team
Yeah.
is, I could not be
Oh.
luckier to work with the team that I work with every day. They are just incredible people, just incredible humans. And every day I kind of have to pinch myself and go, how did I get so lucky?
Teamwork makes the dream work, right?
That's right. That's right.
That's what I say with Ignition. As long as you keep it fun, we're all good.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's gotta be fun and entertaining in order to stay engaged.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Well,
that is for sure.
I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing slides,
Sure.
because one of the things that we've talked about doing is just really rolling through some, industry concepts and even what's happening at conferences. So I love being able to hang out with you, Jennie. And let me stop share here. There we go.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly been to quite a few lately. My passport has been well stamped.
Oh, so have you been in and out of the country?
Well, because I'm located in Canada, it's flying to the US and bebopping around. So it's fun. It's been interesting. A lot of flights, a lot of hotels. But yeah, it's been rewarding to speak to people too.
How many events have you been to so far this year, Jennie?
Oh gosh, what do we got? We got 4, technically 5 under the belt. One more coming at the end of the month in Florida. And just got one of my panels approved for QB Connect. So I'll be at
that's
QB
great.
Connect. Yeah, I have a panel
Awesome.
discussion there too. So that'll be neat. So
Fantastic.
yeah, lots on the go. So
That's fantastic. Well, okay, so you said what was the total of conferences that you've been to?
yeah, we got
Here?
5 under the belt so far.
Okay,
So
all right, and more to go.
Oh, and more to go. Yes, I was away for 2 weeks just recently, just came back. So for those that are on the call wondering where my Ignition swag is, it's in the laundry. Literally got off the plane, went camping with the kids, and it was a stat holiday, and here I am.
Are you seeing a lot of people talk about AI at these conferences?
I'm seeing them talk about AI, wondering what it is, which is great. I had a session at NATP when we were, really just getting down to problems in our firms. And it was just I was not expecting to have a room full of people, like the top floor, back corner, kind of like the movie Dirty Dancing. Nobody puts baby in the corner, right? I did get that t-shirt from there, by the way. I totally wear it all the time. I love it. My husband thinks it's hilarious. But the topic drew in so many people about managing client expectations. And sometimes we need tools that help us. And as part of that conversation, I think you guys have heard me speak a couple of times where it's just really creating a safe place, right? Like we're here to learn from each other. We're going to embrace each other's questions. We're going to embrace you to ask questions because somebody else probably has it, the same question. And if I don't have the answer, maybe somebody else has the answer. So it was really a safe place for this room full of people to communicate. And there was that topic about artificial intelligence and how to use it within our firm. So I think like what I'm seeing right now is more curiosity, kind of like, this thing cloud accounting way back then when it was around and people were kind of like, what's this? Should I do it? But right. But
what do you mean my data is not going to live on my computer? Never. I would never do that. I would never store my clients' data somewhere else. That was the standard, right?
And now it's the thing, right? It's so much. But yeah, a lot to be said about artificial intelligence. And we're talking about Chat GPT and people are like, what is this? And I'm like, well, just like, first of all, the safe place, write it down, Google it. You can put it on your phone. Like, I don't know about you, but I have it on my phone. Sometimes when mom hasn't had a snack and she's replying back to her kids can sound a little snarky. So Chat GPT makes that text a little bit more nice. And I've even used it just with communications with clients where I know I am not bringing my best self to this communication, or even with Ignition, I'm not bringing my best self. Maybe I'm tired or whatever the case is, and I need a little help, where ChatGPT has been helpful. And part of the conversations was like, okay, so that sounds kind of cool, but like, how does it relate with like your product or what I do in industry? And I said, well, I think most of us struggle with how to articulate what we do, like actually say what we do. Like we'll say, I'm an accountant, or I'm an enrolled agent, or I'm a bookkeeper, or I do taxes, or I do bookkeeping. Those are heavily generalized things, right? Because we do a lot more than that. And I found that ChatGPT kind of gives us a little bit of a push to kind of like pump up our tires a little bit and be able to explain to clients exactly what we do. I know with my service items that I use in Ignition, because I'm still a user as well, I'm like, I don't know really how to make this management report, expedited management report service sound great. Because debits and credits, my brain says this resonates with the client. The client's like, I don't know what this means. So just putting something like, here's the description, make it sound more human for a client. Boom. All of a sudden it's like, wow, that makes me look like a human, right? To be able to kind of interpret for us what we do. And I think that's the curiosity we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of trust building too. And rightfully so. Rightfully so. But yeah, what about you guys? What are you seeing with artificial intelligence? I know, Heather, you've been really working
so
well.
I mean, artificial, I can talk, it's 4:00, my mouth stops working.
Safe place. Safe place.
So one of the things that I think ChatGPT has been, well, I don't think I know, has been incredibly helpful is it has knowledge just on how to, rephrase things and word things, but it also can give you incredible instructions. So one of the first things that I had asked it, when I first started playing with it last year, was I wanted to build an automation using OpenAI, which is that's the engine. It's the open platform behind ChatGPT. And this was before ChatGPT could just be added to Zapier. Everybody knows I'm a Zapier fanatic. And for those of you that have never heard of Zapier, it's a no-code, low-code tool that you can use to create automations between over 3,000 cloud-based apps. So anyway, I asked ChatGPT, I want to create an automation using Airtable, ChatGPT, and I want it to automatically create articles when I just put in a topic and some keywords.
No way.
Yeah, and it told me exactly what to do. It said, open up Zapier and do this. This is your trigger. This is your action. Go into Airtable and do this. It gave me all the instructions. So you can ask it things like, if you are, looking for a little piece of code, like if you're using like a no code and it actually needs some code like HTML or something, and you don't know how to do that, you can ask it instructions and it will give you instructions. And I was able to follow step by step what it told me to do. And I built that Zap, and I was like, okay, here's something that is, it's got this knowledge in here that it can share, and it's helped him with Excel problems. It's helped him with Word problems. I know that a member of our team that works in our HubSpot, he has to go in and do some coding things.
Yep.
And so ChatGPT is his go-to. He goes in and he says, I need to do this in HubSpot. Tell me how to do it. And it gives him step-by-step instructions to do it. So I think that's another use that is incredibly helpful. And the cool part of it is that it's not like Googling a YouTube video where they're talking generally. You can be very specific.
Yeah.
I want to do this, these particular tools and with this particular purpose, and it creates custom instructions based on that scenario. Now, is it 100% always right? No, but it's been right more than it's been wrong, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So.
I have another neat little hack I've been using more or less in my firm, because as you know, I'm working now full-time with Ignition. So the firm really has to run on autopilot, right? I have a team that does that, but marketing is always something I've learned that has to be kept close to the heart, right? Because our messages can get, mixed up, and social images can get mixed up. And then all of a sudden you look a little silly on social media, but I don't have a lot of time to write out a bunch of social media posts. But I have one individual, so here's the trade secrets. She does all of the images, the social images. Like I'll come up with a little template. In fact, Etsy is a great place to find social media images for bookkeeping and accounting professionals, and you can customize them. Really great stuff.
Nice.
And then I'll use ChatGPT to like, hey, describe this situation or do the social media posts, and then just pop it into Loomly and it's done. And it's a great way to like keep your social media active, because I find like us as accounting professionals, we tend not to do that, but yet that is also how we can get clients, is through social media. So that's been a really neat process as well.
I love that. And you can even ask hashtags. So if you're talking about social media, and, one of the things that I think is very common is a lot of times on social media, I'll engage with my fellow communities. So other accountants and bookkeepers and CPAs. But what I fail to sometimes do is, and I think this happens a lot in the accounting space, is that we fail to engage with the small business owners who are actually our clients. So it can even, ChatGPT can help to change that tone inside of your post to make sure that you're targeting the right people with your social media efforts.
Exactly, right? Like peer-to-peer, we totally get it. Like we speak that language, right? Like, I don't know if you go up to anybody and talk about the double declining balance and they're like,
what?
Yeah, I guess what we do is kind of weird. But we need to like humanize it and meet them where they're at, is what I like to say, right? Like meet them where they're at. And this is a tool that helps us meet them where they're at and explain things that can kind of be stuck in our head to explain harder than they need to be.
I agree. And one of the things that I was playing with today, so I was sharing earlier that my afternoon got sucked up into YouTube land, and I was watching AI videos, and one of the AI videos that gosh, it was just fascinating. It was talking about actually ChatGPT, and it was pulling in Google, because ChatGPT is not got the latest Google research and data. And so what this AI tool was doing was gathering ChatGPT's verbiage and ability to phrase, and then also tying into Google, so that way it was doing recent searches. And then it was also able to, if you had like a chat bot that was on your website, it could pull in those two different pieces of information, Google and then ChatGPT, and it could form questions. So people could come into your desk and they could ask you questions, help me with blah, 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 blah. And this tool was able to go out and look at the Google and then ChatGPT, put that in there, and then respond automatically to a question that was coming in. No human.
That's pretty cool.
I know.
That's pretty cool.
And what this web indexer tool was doing was actually looking at the amount of times that the phrase was used. Not just, a Google search will just look for a keyword and it doesn't really have any context around it.
Mhm.
So what this web indexer was able to do is actually pull in the context and see what was the usage and how often in those.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I
That's
know.
pretty neat. That's pretty neat. I think it is. It's a great tool when used wisely, right?
Yeah.
It's like chocolate. You can't have too much chocolate, right? According to my trainer. Don't get me
Yeah,
started on that.
but
But
when
yeah,
used
I'd say,
wisely.
yeah, well, this is it, right? Yeah, I'd say like AI has been a chat and ironically, another one that has been popping up quite a bit. Now, the last two conferences I went to were more for enrolled agents, but also this kind of like relates back even further with some of the other conferences, right? Like Scaling New Heights as well as accounting professionals, regardless of how we identify bookkeeper, enrolled agent, accountant, or accounting professional, like we're tied into so much, right? Like we have this superpower that understands this weird language and tax and all this stuff. And we're constantly being asked to do more, and it's turning into the scope creep. I know you guys are aware of it, but like, just managing clients' expectations when they're asking us to do more. And what I'm seeing now, which is more prevalent of what our clients are asking us to do, that we're like, hey, wait a minute, like, what? Is more like government representation. So for my Canadians, it's revenue, it could be Revenue Quebec or Canada Revenue Agency. It's IRS representation, which is big right now. Like, we're being tied into these situations like, yeah, you did the work. Can't you just communicate? Like, and it's like, no, the representation is a completely different service than me doing your tax return and or bookkeeping and or anything else. And all of the, the tax and levies and offers and compromise and all these good things that have to be done as a result of that shouldn't be free. And so that's been something to articulate is, when our clients are asking us to do things, that being able to articulate that that's different. And that's one of the initiatives that I have at Ignition is bringing more of those service libraries like Appy Hour has, right? With the QuickBooks and QuickBooks training and the cleanup, like nobody ever gets a clean set of books, in my opinion, unless there's something wrong, right? How to articulate that. And that's what I'm really passionate about. My role with Ignition is, being able to bring forward, like, you should be charging for this because otherwise our profit margins are going to start doing this, especially if we're on fixed fee or value pricing.
Yep. I hear you there. I do. Well, so with some of the conferences that you've been going to, are you seeing trends in the education that's being offered?
Yeah, a lot of it is getting like there's always been the theory, right? Like tax law or a different process. But what I'm seeing now in the conferences I've been to is more or less change management, if we were to boil it down. Like the ship is moving and there's so many apps now and there's so many different ways of doing it. How do we change the engine mid-flight, right? Like the plane's already off. Like, how are we maintaining the plane while it's in the air? And so change management has been a topic that I've been seeing quite a bit. Like, it's not easy. Like back in the day, if you're a smaller practice, you can change an app, no problem. Right. But like, how do we handle that now? And how do we have successful buy-in from maybe a larger team to make sure that we are optimized and we are doing things correctly? And so like a lot of that has been the discussion, like, yes, there's the theory side of it, but like the tactical how is still very present. Like how do I roll out this plan to implement X? And making sure I'm asking the right questions, making sure it's the right product, and making sure that there's a holistic buy-in from the entire organization. At one conference, I met this really interesting individual, and that was his full-time role. He's no longer a practicing CPA, no longer running his own firm. He goes into firms and he does the change management right down to what are your values? Let's stick true to this. Let's not get distracted with the latest shiny object and let's implement real change. And I thought, wow, like that's a real one. And that's what I'm seeing too is over and above, learning about what our value is with representation, because that's just been something that's been really big is how do we do all this change now and manage it accordingly. And I think that that's really important, and understanding what data flows with what, because I know like some products, like it's all about data flow. Like you're saying with SAPs, Heather, right? Like
Yeah.
take this trigger and put that trigger here, right? We don't want to silo data. And so it's important, as part of that change
Right.
management is helping people understand that just because it's something that fixes a problem, how does it work? How does it play nice with everything else that you're working with? And I think that's important.
No, it is important. And I think that there's so much involved in the change. And it is very much a soft skill. So change management definitely has, as you said, it's tactical. There's a lot of planning, and communication is really important, but it's also understanding people, and empathy is at the forefront of it. It's the acknowledgement that change is hard. It's hard by the definition of change, right?
Yes.
So going in and the way that you approach every member of the organization, right, and making sure that every member of the organization is part of the discussion and is part of the change, is hard. It's hard to do. There's egos involved. There's fear of failure. There's a feeling of being left behind, right? There's so much emotion attached to a simple change, like even switching from Lotus 1, 2, 3 to Excel. If you think of way back in the day, right? What is this going to be like? It may be that, yes, it's a better tool. Yes, it's a better way to go. But when you are not familiar with it and you don't have the skills, you feel incredibly vulnerable and you feel threatened. So that change management piece is kind of the keystone for true change. And without it, it just falls apart, especially if you can't recognize the people that are really struggling with it and help them, like coach them through it. So I'm glad to hear, and I'm always glad to hear when there's professionals out there that are going to bat for that, because that's something that I am incredibly passionate about, because I've seen it. I've experienced, going through very extensive, high cost projects just to watch them just evaporate because the change management wasn't handled in the way that it needed to be. So,
and that's it, right? You have to get the belief and the buy-in, and it's because any process, like people, processes, and platforms, right? Those are the three P's I always go back to. And if you're implementing a platform, just doing that's not enough. You need to, what is the process for it? Because my firm may approach a piece of software or an app differently than maybe Liz does, right? And then my people, right? Like how am I going to communicate that? We can't just do one and alienate the other two. And it is really important. And, a lot of questions were asked, like, how do you handle this? Like things are changing so quickly. I'm like, well, I remember ISO manufacturing environment that I was responsible for. They gave me this fancy title of financial analyst, which just means I did a lot of calculator work. But at the end of the day, right, we had these ISO certifications, so we had to write everything out. Like how to use the pencil sharpener. No, I'm kidding. We stopped this. Yeah, we stopped at that. But it was like everything, like every keystroke, how to enter a fixed asset into the fixed asset management system. And so trying to apply that now, like when I went from corporate, it was like, okay, well, that was a static, customized, proprietary system that didn't really change, right? Did it have problems? Absolutely. We had a huge IT firm just to take care of, like, department, just to manage everything that broke on a daily basis, right? And now when we're in industry, things are so playful and changing. Like a customer can implement an app and royally screw up the financial management system in a blink of an eye, right?
they can. Yes.
Yeah, I've seen it happen.
Oh yeah.
That you are off my Christmas card list. Anywho, then he bought me a bottle of wine and everything was fine. But if you're ever in a pinch, SASHANT is great as a bulk deleter. There's many bulk deleters, but it's also a double-edged sword. So remember,
right.
May the force be with you. But yeah, and it's just like setting things up. Whereas now they're like, okay, so this is great. You're telling us to do this, or you're on stage, and that's great. Like, how do you actually communicate this stuff? I'm like, Loom, video, like
Yeah.
transcribe it, get Otter AI and transcribe it, because different people will, like, I have to have someone like this, right, to explain something to me. If you were to give me a thesis on it, my anxiety just goes through the roof. I'm not even, I can't concentrate on it. So yeah, exactly. Scribe is another one. So like using Loom and like embedding the steps into Loom is a great way for your team to like, okay, this is how we're going to handle this. It's also a good way to triage problems, right? Because like I get called in for fires and that's about it. It's like, what's not working? I need to visualize it. So they'll like, record it and be like, okay, this is how we're going to approach it then. Right. But yeah, the tactical, like using Loom and some sort of transcribing service. Is it always awesome? No, sometimes I sound like a complete idiot with what gets transcribed, but the point gets across, especially when it comes to the Canadian about, never gets it.
Jenny, the other piece that I think people forget about is giving the time and grace to get comfortable with the new process, people, or technology, right? So, making sure that your team is not, that the ratio between production and admin and learning and, exploring things that they're interested in, that ratio is optimized to the point where people feel like I have the time to learn this. I have the support and the bandwidth to actually put in to comfortably learn a process or something new. Because I think we forget that we're such a deadline driven industry that's always, always going. And so that's a big one for firms to think about. Well, if they're not producing, I have to pay for that. Well, that's where the value pricing comes in. It's got to be built into your business model. And as soon as you correct your business model, now you're going to be able to sustain that, which I think is necessary to move us into the future and for that change to actually happen.
Absolutely. Like I think the biggest thing I do with my team is like clearly I spoke main stage scaling new heights in front of thousands of people about my script. Like I screw up. And so and create a safe place where it's like you're not ostracized for making a mistake. Now, obviously you want to set them up for success, that they don't have access maybe to the full rodeo if it's going to like really cause some problems, right? But like setting up safe parameters for them to make mistakes, as horrible as it sounds for us as accounting professionals, right? But like, okay, instead of going, oh, you screwed up this or that, it's like, hey, okay, this happened. It's now a learning opportunity for all of us. And there's no shame or blame. It's just, I mean, obviously, if it's a chronic issue, that's an HR issue. But creating that safe place, Heather, that you're saying to, really get curious and have them self-believe, have them find the same confidence we all did in the product, right? Let them see it. And I think having the safe place is important, and learning from it. And then, hey, if something happens, it's probably because of the people, which in this case, one would argue is not the case. The process wasn't written out. Your processes wasn't clear. You didn't have, it wasn't right. And then the platform wasn't the right platform. Right. So yeah, break it down.
It makes me want to ask you both, thinking about change management and thinking about the accounting industry, what kind of tips would you give people that are accountants who are trying to adopt the change that's happening in our industry right now and incorporating that in their firms?
Yeah.
I mean, the first tip is to set aside time every single week. Make that time, put it in your calendar to attend a webinar, to sign up for ChatGPT and actually start using it and playing with it, to set up a demo company and give yourself the time to actually go in and play with it in a safe way. And the reason for that is because that's what's going to empower you to actually go out and change your mindset.
Exactly.
We are rule followers. That's what we do, right? That's why people hire a CPA, because the CPAs can be counted on to follow rules and regulations and make sure they can compare financials to the standard. So for us to step outside and experiment sometimes feels kind of funny But if you give yourself that 1 hour a week, that's all I did. I gave myself an hour a week. I eventually went to 2 because I was having lots of fun. Then,
It's like those YouTube videos, Liz.
Yeah,
I know.
I'm a hands-on learner. So the YouTube videos for me, I'm not an auditory learner. And what ends up happening is then I stop and I have to rewind and I stop. And so for me, I've got to read, I've got to get the gist of it, and then I've got to go in and actually play with it. And that's how it works. So giving yourself that time, to play is really good. So,
I want to kind of maybe rephrase the question, Jenny. I think that whenever I ask you, what about change management can we help ourselves with when we're thinking about a project manager? Because I think that's maybe part of the struggle is that, a lot of us are the owners of the firm. We're not really sure which things to implement, when to implement them, and there's not an accountability buddy. So, how can somebody handle that project manager piece that's missing from our industry?
Yeah, like some firms are large enough to have like chief technology officers, right? And that's what they do, and they implement this. But many of us are, in this, either in it alone or we're in it with some team members as well. And I think the biggest thing, like it sounds sort of sadistic in a way, but I've always been like, follow the pain. Yeah. Like that's where you need to start with the change management. Like if it's churn with your employees or churn with your customers, uncover what that is. What is that problem? And really, get beyond the surface and get down to the root and focus on that. Right. And then there's always going to be something that needs to be changed. Okay. There has never been a week where it's like, wow, I'm so glad everything stayed the same. It's just like, I don't know, unless I'm in an igloo way up somewhere. I don't know. It's always changing. So I think when we look at that from a firm perspective and, is following the pain, right? And then finding the right people curious enough to be passionate about fixing it. Because I know there's stuff that's one of the reasons why I started working with Ignition. Me, in my practice, I was having fun, but I just I like doing different aspects of the business. I don't like doing the reconciling down to the last penny anymore. So empowering people who love that, right, was best. And it's like, okay, maybe I'm not the right person to solve this problem because maybe I don't understand it or I'm not as passionate about it, but delegating that to a champion. So it's like, hey, and it's not about hierarchies. Okay. It's not about that. It's like, who's curious enough to solve it? And again, like Heather was saying earlier, give them the time to do it and implement it. And some of the ideas they'll come up with will just blow your mind.
I love that. So it's not about hierarchy. It's like, who's the right champion for that?
Who's curious?
It's getting here. It's giving finding your team, each team member's superpower, right? What is the thing that really drives them? And then making sure that you're giving them the work.
Yeah.
That brings out the best, that they do the best and brings out the best of them. Yeah. I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
And,
think of it from their perspective. They want, why do people leave jobs? They don't leave jobs. They leave managers. Why? Because they didn't change. Or they weren't receptive to change, and they wanted to be part of the change and make things better. And all they could do was invoice in 15-minute intervals, right? Empowering your team safely and setting them up for success to lead that and reward them. Hey, call it out. This is great. And maybe it's kicking them a little bonus. My favorite thing is to give a paid day off free. It's like, hey, you know what? You worked really hard on that. You go take Friday off. No questions asked. I don't care what you do, but you're not on Slack. You're gone. And there's ways that we can do that. And I feel like that's important for us to keep moving, because as a practice owner, we can't possibly know it all.
No,
we're
and
not doing it all.
Trying to do it all.
Right.
Yeah. We're not in the weeds as much as, and empowering them to work together, I think is important.
I think, empowering people to work together. And, I get it that we're all in our Zoom bubbles. And so it does make working together difficult. But I've got a really good friend, Anne, who's here, and we've even had work accountability sessions. So she calls it being glued to her chair. And she'll say, Liz, let's jump in a Zoom and let's stay glued to our chair so that way we're being accountable for whatever the task is that we join the session for. But that doesn't mean that we're actually talking the whole time. It's just our accountability Zoom room.
We've
Yeah.
done that too, Liz. We've
Yes,
done
we
that. We haven't
have.
done it in a while, but we have done it. We've definitely done it.
And it works.
Yeah.
There is something about having somebody in the vicinity that's going to hold you accountable.
Yeah. Like we do
yeah.
that at Ignition, right? Like I'm
Yeah.
an accounting professional now moved into this role. I've gone from HubDoc to HubSpot. Now,
Yes.
if anyone's familiar, like I know Heather, you know where I'm getting at, but I'm like,
yeah.
right. And so even though we have accountability to each other, because like we're pushing a product out, we're wanting to get the right messaging, we're wanting to make real impactful change, which by the way, keep an eye out for our next campaign. Woo, it is going to ruffle some feathers. It's going to be, I'll talk to Heather and Liz offline, but that's just my little spoiler for everyone out there. It's going to, it's going to be punchy. And, like we hold each other accountable. And then, if we're starting to feel a little, oh gosh, I'm like, I just can't figure out HubSpot, someone else comes in, we just empower each other because maybe my superpower, which clearly is not HubSpot, maybe it's creating a piece of content that can be delivered on HubSpot, right? And just being accountable to each other, right?
Well,
Yeah.
You make me think about Ignition and some of the recent releases. So there was some big news that Heather shared today. And I mean, Jenny, I'm sure that the team in Ignition was probably thrilled about whoever was working on it, talking about, celebrating the people who are on that team.
Yeah.
But you want to share with all of our viewers what happened today?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think first and foremost, I'll just start with the amazing development team that we have not only in Australia, but throughout the world, being a global product. And with the Dane has been the one that's been overseeing our entire development. They're making real radical change in our product. So the interface is getting, it's like constant facelifts and beautiful things, like just really nice. Like they're working so hard to make it easier for us as accounting professionals to be compliant, to get paid. And so if you haven't seen Ignition in a while, come on back and have a good look and maybe have a little demo just to walk through and see what your options are. But over and above some of the other features that we've nailed out in last year, like we've done the 3 proposal options, that was, paramount. We've done the templates, which we have Appy Hour in there, like bringing these and making it so much easier. But what's been really tricky for us as accounting professionals, as I was alluding to with, IRS representation or government representation, is sometimes we get started with an engagement and things change because they're growing. We're helping them grow, right? Things change. And, unless we're adopting that change and doing proper change orders, we can lose out on some money. Right. And so now what we have going live within our product is called an instant bill feature. So instead of like opening up that great big engagement letter again, think of it like getting back into that white dress and walking right down the aisle. You know what I mean? And you're having this whole great big, thing again. We're not, it's a really great feature, instant bill, where we're going to be able to go, oh, okay. Oh, you just need a little bit of help with, some HR consulting or a snippet of tax planning. And being able to bill that, get it out and just get it out the door and get it approved and paid for, which I think is so good for us in managing scope, right?
Well, and it's also huge because I think a lot of people their processes ended up being in two places, right? Because for their ongoing engagements, they were using Ignition, but if it was just like a one-off thing, I'll just go do that in QuickBooks or Xero, right?
Yeah. Which is
and so now
cool too, but
now we've got streamlined processes because we're always in Ignition. So it's a big celebration because that's definitely something people have been asking for.
Yeah.
To do that.
It's
so I love it.
Proper change order process, right? And
yes,
we have, for those that have not been familiar before this, so this is going live. We have had service edits also come out as well, where we can change like the service item. So if payroll is like 5 to 10 employees and they grew and now it's 11 to 15 and you're charging per employee, you can update that, which is
I
great. I don't know
love
why I'm using all my hand gestures, but it just seems exciting to do. So yeah, Instant Bill is certainly one that has been coming out. And we do have another sneaky little integration happening with Intuit as well, but I can't divulge that. But that's really close to our hearts as well. So we have quite a bit that's with Intuit already with QuickBooks Online. Obviously, we're big fans of that, being able to push our invoices and payments there. And we have Intuit Practice Management for our US clients, which has been great. And this next tidbit, I think, is just going to be the crown jewel to help bring that full practice together.
Nice.
Oh, I love that. I think that's exciting. You know,
Yeah, it is exciting. I have
thinking
an idea
about
what it might be, but
Yeah, it's like
love the word.
she wants to ask. I know Heather wants to
I want to
ask.
ask, but I'm not gonna- I'm like, I think I know what it is.
You know, I'm gonna go back to Instant Bill because
Yeah.
I'm not gonna ask.
Diversion.
When I'm thinking about Instant Bill, I can tell you one of the areas that I personally struggle is the support billing. And so I'm thinking about Instant Bill going, okay, I've already got the client inside of my system. I already have everything set up. It's just a matter of something happens that's different from the norm.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's so easy to let that support money slip through and just be like, oh, it's no big deal. It was just 15, 20 minutes. Oh, it was just 45 minutes. But, you really have to think about the time that it takes to change directions, to flip your mindset to whatever that support ticket was, even if it was just 15 minutes, and then back to whatever it was that you were working on previously, or you're switching gears completely. So each of those tasks that you open and close, there's lots of studies that are out there about what amount of time it takes to change directions. But I struggle with just the billing.
Yeah. And
done.
it raises a really good point, because with our independent research that we had done last year on this idea, this is what really provoked us to go in this direction. Because, it's almost annoying, right? I have to go through this process and do this all over again. But by not managing this, and now that what we can do with Instant Bill, on average, accounting professionals on each firm in the United States was missing out on $76,636 a year.
Wow.
So even though all those little tidbits, times that by how many employees you have, right? That's a lot of money. I could hire another bookkeeper for that, or pay myself more. So that's one of the reasons why we really pushed to do this, because it's like, wow, this research really pushed us. And this was independent research. This isn't a Google form that we did on our own site, which, there's nothing wrong with that, but this was independent research. And that was the cost of it. And I know for me within our firm, like, sometimes we call them optimizer sessions when they need to, they're not regularly communicating with the team, but maybe they just need a 1 hour session to determine if they should implement Shopify or BigCommerce or blah. And it's a consulting fee. So you know what? That optimizer session can now be billed out using service edits, right? And or better yet, instant bill. So I think it's going to be a really neat thing just to keep us, because I think our clients do want to pay us. We just don't always articulate and make it easy.
Oh, I just had to capture another one of the Jennie jokes.
Optimizer sessions. You can use it. It's no license required. Go ahead.
I like the triple P's. I mean, I'm just all Jennie stuff.
That's right. Whenever there's a problem, it's either the people, the process, or the platform. So try and diverge which one it is.
But with an optimizer session.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right. An Instant Bill.
And make sure you use Instant Bill. Exactly.
Liz, do we have a poll for this session?
I think it
one, but I think you may see it and I just don't see it.
Yeah, no, one of the things that we always like to do is just say, hey, would you like to learn more? So how about I just launch that poll, and then you should see it right now. And this is just a poll to say, would you like to know more about Ignition? Do you want to know more about the Instant Bill? Do you want to learn more about optimizer sessions?
That's right. There's tons of, that's what I love about each one of us having our own practice and creating these templates, right? Like we have yourself and we have so many other thought leaders as well. And we all kind of have like our quirks and our like special like secret sauce. Like our good friend Dawn Brolin, she just went live with her template, by the way. So she revolutionized her tax practice last year. We might have had a discussion at Appy Hour Camp in West Virginia. And no pressure. It was just one girlfriend talking to another. And so lo and behold, she adopted it, completely switched her platform, her entire firm, and then created a template for us for this coming tax season, which I think is great.
Right.
So there's lots that, yes, it's a product, right?
Killer, yeah.
But we're leveraging a community of people to have it make sense. And I think that that's what's really unique about what we do and why I ultimately joined Ignition.
All right. So it looks like we have people who have responded. I'm just going to count everybody down. 5, 4, 3, 2, and done. Okay. All right. Everybody got a chance to say yes, they want more Jennie.
That's it, right? That's when I used to do the optimizer sessions with the clients. They used to call it Jennie time. I'm like, we need to figure out a better word for this because it's just optimizer session. Okay, it's not Jennie time. It's optimizer session.
It doesn't have to be just Jennie. Or we can just call it JJ. Just
JJ. Yeah,
JJ.
Jennie.
Yeah.
Well, there's always lots of fun stuff that we can learn from each other. And I want to thank you too. It's always fun having a conversation. I mean, we can have a bunch of boring slides and all this good stuff, but I think it's great just to, take
this
off
is
the armor
fantastic.
and talk about what's going on.
Oh my gosh. Well, and that's exactly what we wanted to do today. We wanted to be able to have you join us and to be able to just say, hey, let's catch up. Yes, of course, we always want to talk about Ignition. It's one of the reasons that we're able to have you on is because we've got, Ignition as an Appy Hour sponsor, and we're grateful for that. So
Yeah.
always fun. And I'm glad that you got to share some of the instant billing with us. And I would like to make sure to encourage everybody to also join us whenever we have Sarah Prevost that's going to be with us.
Oh, she's amazing.
I know. She's
Oh my
another one of my
gosh.
favorite people.
Oh,
my
yeah.
She's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah. And smart as a whip. Like just
Yeah.
like, yeah. And authentic and exactly.
Oh my gosh. Big time. Heather and I got a chance to talk to her today. And she
Ah.
was at the Gusto conference, talking about another conference that's happening right now. And so she was sharing with us her beautiful room from was she in San Diego or was she in
San Francisco?
Thank you.
Is it San Francisco? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's going to be fun. She's going to be sharing, of course, some of her tech stack, and she's got a different vantage point on how she's using some of these apps that we're all hearing about. So she's going to be sharing Financial Sense and Keeper and a little bit of how she's using Lisio. So
Right.
Nice.
all 3 of
And
those.
Relay.
Yeah.
Oh, and Relay, that's right. Yep.
Oh, yes. Relay's a good one. We're using Relay in my practice and we love it. And Keeper. We love Keeper.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So Ben, keep doing the hard work because you're making it easier.
Make all of us smile. Yes. Well,
Awesome.
thank you to everybody for joining us. And Jennie, thank you for joining us
Yeah.
and being part of our
Always
conversation.
fun. Can't wait to have you back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you, everyone. And I hope you have a great day. And remember, use those optimizer sessions. And if you're
Yes.
really smart,
Yes.
you're going to be using Ignition with the instant bill feature.
That's right.
Shameless
Pay for
plug.
it.
Shameless. Completely shameless.
All right, everybody.
We'll
We'll
take it.
see you next week.
That's right.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.